great to be at the People's Republic of Brent. I did get lost, partly. I had an interesting scenic route around London's beautiful canals, not quite so beautiful in pitch black, to be honest with you, on a bike. The only meeting I was going to have this evening at that rate was with the canal itself, so I'm glad I've made it alive. And it's great to be here. It's kind of humbling to be here. And the reason I wanted partly to come here is because Brent's made a bit of a name for itself in terms of people fighting back against the people ruling over you locally. Real sense of grassroots resistance, of people kind of inspiring the rest of us and giving us all a bit of leadership. It's humbling to be on this platform with grassroots activists who are out there fighting for services that are under attack in places like this and of course right across the country. And that's down to the efforts of people here, and it's so important that we hear those voices in the last few years that have all too often been airbrushed entirely from the debate. So long may it continue, long may your fight continue, and please keep giving us hope. We've had 5 years now. 5 years of being ruled over by this law. It's kind of humiliating to a degree. Let's just go through a few. Michael Gove. Come on, do a bit. Come on, that deserved a bit of a move. Andrew Lansley. Ian Duncan Smith. George Osborne. It's like Panto. We can keep going all night, couldn't we? 5 years. Look what they've done to this country. Longest fall in living standards since Queen Victoria sat on the throne of this country in the 19th century. Well over 1 million workers driven into poverty wages, disproportionately women. This is a country where most people in poverty, they're in work. They earn their poverty. They get up day after day after day to earn poverty wages. It's a country where we don't just have, well, go through booming industries. We'll talk about these booming industries, like food banks. Last year, 1 million people, 300,000 of them children, driven into the arms of food banks. This is the 6th richest country on the face of the earth. And apparently we can no longer afford to feed our poorest people. Another booming industry, legal loan sharks, rich pickings for the vultures circling overhead. You can make an easy buck out of other people's suffering in austerity Britain. 1 million families every single month now dependent on legal loan sharks to pay their mortgage, their rent, to put food on the table, to clothe their kids. It's a country with a housing crisis. We've spoken about it tonight. A housing crisis where 5 million people languish on social housing waiting lists, deprived of that basic right, that basic need, an affordable home for them and their children. Think about this city, this booming metropolitan city, where Russian oligarchs buy up new build properties in inner London and leave them vacant, whilst 1 in 4 children in this booming metropolitan capital of ours grow up in an overcrowded home, robbed of security, of dignity, their health and their education and their well-being, all of them damaged. It's a country where we don't just have unemployment, but we have a mass epidemic of underemployment as well. Like an army of 0-hour contract workers. It's like a return to a supposedly bygone era where dockers marched to the yard in the morning and stuck their hands up, hoping to get work, often to go home disappointed. Well, now I meet young people who get a text message at 6 o'clock in the morning telling them if they've got any hours that day. Often, and in all of those cases, no pension, forget about a pension, no paid sick leave, let alone paid maternity leave. How do you build a family? How do you build security? How do you settle down? You can't. Robbed again of dignity and security and a future. This is a country where it's one rule for those people at the top of society, and it's one rule for those at the bottom. And that was brought into sharp relief by the banks, which plunged this country and other countries into economic calamity. They weren't bailed out by free market dogma. They were bailed out by the state. Hundreds of billions of pounds of public money. They became Britain's most lavish benefit claimant, but with one key difference. One key difference with ordinary benefit claimants. Huge amounts of public money, but with so few conditions attached to that money. They carried on, they pay more bonuses than every other European Union country put together. Higher salaries to those at the top than ever before, even eclipsing their predecessors, not known for their restraint, not lending money to small businesses. Huge amounts of money, but so few conditions. But compare that to those at the bottom of society. Compare that to those thrown out of work, often because of the actions of those bailed out at the top. Like millions of unemployed people, thrown out of work, they follow their own. And the difference is, their benefits, ever more conditional. The support they get from the state, ever more conditional or simply stripped away altogether. And the most vivid example of that is benefit sanctioning. Now, I'm sure most people in the room know what it is, but for those who don't, it means that you have your benefits stopped for 2, 3, 4, maybe more weeks on the basis you have failed to abide by the strict conditions attached to receiving support from the state, and derisory support at that. Over 1 million people in the last 18 months alone have had their benefits sanctioned. But I don't just want to throw statistics about. I want to give you an example. A 60-year-old man called Stephen Taylor, an army veteran. Now, Stephen Taylor in Manchester, he was selling poppies for the Royal Legion for maimed and injured former comrades of his. He was desperately looking for work. He was selling poppies at a supermarket where he was trying to get a job unsuccessfully. It's difficult when you're 16 out of work and you're trying, but he was trying hard. He had his benefits stopped, sanctioned for 4 weeks on the basis that his volunteering for the Royal Legion showed he wasn't trying hard enough to look for work. Compare and contrast. Huge state support for those at the top, no strings attached. For those at the bottom, derisory support stripped away altogether. You know what that is? That's socialism for the rich, and that's capitalism sink or swim for those at the bottom of society. And that's the sort of country they're building. A sort of country where you can avoid tax on an industrial scale and have accountancy firms seconded to the Treasury to draw up the tax laws and tell their clients how to get around the very laws they themselves have written in the first place. Whilst if you're at the bottom of society, you get 20 quid cash in hand when you're unemployed, you can expect the old bill to come knocking on your door pretty damn swiftly. One rule for those at the top and one rule for everybody else. But this is the thing. Ever since this crisis has begun, ever since we were plunged into this mess by those at the top, what they tried to do is redirect people's justifiable anger at their ever worsening conditions, away from those at the top, away from those with power, to people's neighbours down the streets instead. You know what that is? What it is the politics of envy. Now, say that, it often sounds surprising, because people like us, when we say, hang on a minute, the wealth of the top 1,000 people has doubled in the last 5 years during one of the great economic crises in modern British history, whilst so many people are struggling, surely they can afford to pay a bit more money. That's the politics of envy, because if you stand up for the bottom 70%, they call you a class warrior. You stand up for those 1% at the top, and apparently you're a moderate. But it's these powerful people who constantly push the politics of envy. They try and get struggling people to envy each other. They say to low-paid workers whose wages are being cut by their bosses, whose in-work benefits are being slashed by this government, don't be angry with your boss. Don't be angry with the government. Envy the unemployed person down the road living in a mansion made out of widescreen television sets. They say to private sector workers whose pensions have been decimated, one of the great scandals of our time, don't be angry with your boss. Envy instead the nurse, the teacher, the public sector worker down the road whose pension is still intact. And they say to people, they can't get a home because governments won't build council housing, or they can't get a proper secure job because they've been stripped from our economy. Don't be angry with the powerful. Envy the immigrant getting the job or the home that should rightfully be yours instead. They tell people this: you've been mugged. But don't be angry at the fact you've been mugged. Be angry about the fact your less deserving neighbour hasn't been mugged quite as much as you have. And it's the politics of divide and rule. because they know when we're angry at each other, we're not going to be angry with those at the top. That's the problem. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of fear as well. There's one thing missing, and that's hope. And without hope, people give up. They become resigned, or their anger is turned on their neighbours instead. It doesn't take much for a bunch of enterprising charlatans to come along and exploit that anger. Which brings me quite smoothly to UKIP. Let's talk about UKIP briefly. Let's talk about UKIP. That proud anti-establishment party led by that rare breed of British politician, a privately educated ex-city broker. An anti-establishment party bankrolled by multi-millionaire ex-Tory donors. An anti-establishment party whose latest two recruits as MPs are two privately educated ex-Tory MPs, both of whom worked either in the city or asset management. And it's an anti-establishment party whose politics, I think, really diverge from the consensus, calling as they do for the privatisation of the NHS and public services, attacking basic workers' rights and slashing taxes on the rich. Really sticking it to the man, I feel. But here's the thing. What I've got to say to UKIP voters is you might not be able to persuade them about the merits of immigration overnight. But we can ask them this. Who is more responsible for the plight that you are in? Is it the Polish fruit picker? Is it the Lithuanian nurse? Is it the Nigerian care worker? Or is it a financial elite that plunged this country into economic disaster and still gets away with it today? Is it the tax dodgers who hoard £25 billion a year from the public purse as services are slashed and the rest of us have to pay our taxes? Is it the poverty-paying bosses who leave millions of working people earning their poverty day after day? Is it the private landlords charging rip-off rents, subsidised effectively by the state? Who are the real villains in modern Britain? We've got to do more than that. We've got to do more than redirect people's anger. We've got to give people hope. Only Ben died last year, and I miss him very much, and I'm sure many other people do as well. And he said the way you get change is the burning flame of anger and injustice. The burning flame of hope for a better world. Well, that's our mission. We've got to give people hope. I often go to schools and sixth forms. I still look like the youngest person in the room. I find young people, they're savvy, they know what's going on around them. They know they're going to struggle to get a secure job, an affordable house, their services are slashed and all the rest. They know all that. They lack hope. Life, the future, just seems often like never-ending insecurity, fear, and all the rest. And we owe it to those young people to give them hope. Because when you give people hope, then they start fighting back. Then they start sacrificing their time. I want to talk just quickly about what that politics of hope will look like. But instead, one day we will look back. One day we will look back at the idea that you can get up in the morning and struggle and toil and sweat and come back with a pay packet that doesn't let you look after yourself, let alone your family. We'll look back at that in disgust. I will look back in disbelief at the fact we spend billions of pounds of taxpayers' money every single year on in-work benefits, subsidising the poverty wages of these companies. And that is why, no ifs and no buts, that we must argue, if you are in work, you must have a living wage. Take housing. Now it's true, again, we don't know the cost of housing to human beings, of overcrowding, in terms of health and education and well-being. We don't know the precise cost of all that. We know the cost to the taxpayer, though. We know we spend billions of pounds, about 24 billion on housing benefit every single year, not lining the pockets of tenants. Often subsidising, lining the pockets of private landlords, charging rip-off rents because they know they can get away with it. Well, instead, yes, we need to take over empty homes, about 250,000 long-term empty homes in this country. It's complicated, though often they're not in places people necessarily want to live. The local authorities, in theory, have the power to do something about these empty homes. It's about time they started using them. But there are 5 million people stuck on social housing waiting lists in modern Britain. And that is why, as well as controlling rents, because families have been driven into the arms of an unregulated private rented sector with rip-off rents and all the rest, no security, children bumped from school to school because they can't set down roots and all the rest of it. We need to control private rents, shift the balance to the tenant, but we've also got to lift the borrowing cap on councils to give them the power to build council housing, creating jobs, stimulating the economy, bringing down the 5 million strong social housing waiting list and housing benefit as well. That instead of leaving people on unemployment or underemployment, or stuck in a cycle of low-paid work and unemployment, we have an industrial strategy to create hundreds of thousands of renewable energy jobs, as they've done in Germany, taking on the environmental and the jobs crisis. That instead of constantly going on about benefit fund, worth about £1.2 billion a year, we talk about the tax avoidance of those at the top, £25 billion every single year. Amazon, Google, Sir Philip Green, who is registered his company under his wife's name in Monaco and was appointed as an advisor by this government on how to slash our public services. But we've got to clamp down on every single loophole and kick the big four accountancy firms out of the Treasury and stop them drawing up tax laws for their mates. Again, it goes further. Tax justice, proper taxes on income and on wealth. The people at the top have never had it so good they can afford to pay up a substantial amount more. That instead of our utilities being run by private profiteers, they should be run by the people of this country. Take British Rail. We spend 5 times more subsidies on our privatised, inefficient, rip-off railways than we did in the days of British Rail. One of the most expensive railway systems on earth. It's cheaper often to fly halfway across the world than it is to travel by train in your own country. It makes no sense. So what we must do is, as each franchise expires, we bring our railways back under the control of the people of this country. And it goes further than that. Take energy. What a world we live in. A basic need like heating is there run for private profit. Now, when Ed Miliband called for a temporary freeze on energy, he was portrayed as the second coming of Vladimir Lenin, who was going to nationalise all your mothers. But the thing is, according to the polls, he wasn't actually going as far as the people in this country want. The vast majority of people in this country want public ownership of our energy supply, not just Labour voters. Those well-known frothing at the mouth lefties, UKIP voters, support renationalisation of energy. Then we've got to talk about workers' rights, because workers' wages were falling or flatlining years before Lehman Brothers came crashing down, even as companies were posting record profits. And what did that do? It drove people either to depend more on in-work benefits or on cheap credit and personal debt. And that's because we don't have strong enough trade unions to represent the interests of working people, the real wealth creators, and give them a slice of the wealth they're creating. And that is why we've got to argue for workers' rights fit for the 21st century. We've got to go further. We've got to talk about childcare. Universal childcare in Sweden, whilst in this country families spend between 1/3 and 1/2 of their income on childcare, forcing them to choose between work and looking after their kids. The banks. We nationalise the debts and we privatise the profits. As I've said, they carry on like they always did. And that is why we've got to turn our bailed out banks that we the people bailed out into publicly owned investment banks to rebuild our shattered economy. I'll be honest, these are not wacky fringe ideas. They're not extreme. They're just common sense. It's what the people of this country want. There's a key difference with the politics that we're constantly force-fed at the moment. It's not about kicking people at the bottom of society. It's not about insecurity and despair and fear and all the rest. It's about giving people hope. It's about at least starting to move towards a society that's not a racket for a tiny group of people at the top. A society run in the interests and aspirations of working people, the people who keep society ticking day after day. Now, what gives me hope above all else is this. The way we've got change in this country and other countries isn't because of the goodwill and generosity of those above. It's because of the struggle and sacrifice of people from below, like people on this platform, like people in this audience, people who fought, often at great cost and sacrifice, people who faced what seemed like insurmountable odds, who fought and they won. Let's just think about it. Go back to the Tolbooth martyrs of the 1830s, early trade unionists, agricultural workers in Dorset, whose wages and terms and conditions were under attack, and they fought to set up their own union to represent